My name is Vern Hoven.
And I'm Sharon Kreider, and we're here to help you with some questions and answers.
And the next question is dealing with payroll requirements on the use of PPP loans, the 75 or 60% rule. And the viewer admits to being confused here.
Because it changed so many times? Yeah.
If we stick with an 8-week calculation, must we spend 75% of the PPP loan on payroll costs, or may we use 60%?
All right, you can use 60%. That's the answer. Both the 8-week change to 24 weeks and the changes to the spending requirements were retroactive back to the beginning of the PPP loans. So back to CARES Act itself. Now, you have a 24-week period right now. You can elect on earlier loans to use 8-week instead of 24 weeks. But on the spending requirement, CARES never said how much of the loan had to be spent on payroll. It was Treasury and SBA that said, in the spirit of it being a paycheck protection program, that at least 75% had to be spent. Legislation in the PPP Loan Flexibility Act changed it to 60%, actually put that in the legislation. So you are entitled for old loans and new loans to use 60% of in the limitation, meaning that of your loan proceeds, you must spend 60%. If you spend less than 60%, you don't lose all forgiveness. It says particularly in the Flexibility Act that you're allowed to prorate your forgiveness based upon what you did spend on payroll.
Another question. Is payroll really the only things you can use the PPP loan on? We know the answer to that. Or the only expenses that qualify for forgiveness? And then he says, if my client uses the loan proceeds for other things like inventory, marketing, and travel that keep his business afloat, does it not just become a loan?
All right, so let's start with payroll isn't the only thing you can use the PPP loan on. You can also use it on rent or mortgage interest on your building, and you can use it on utilities. So you can, in fact, you can use it on payroll costs and then these other items. And remember, we have a 60% requirement. You have to use your loan proceeds at least 60% on payroll, and then the rest can be used on other things. Now, for many of our businesses, because we now have a 24-week, we're just going to spend our loan proceeds on payroll and have total forgiveness. But really, this question is that the business has lots of problems. It's more than just payroll. They can't pay their vendors. They can't continue their marketing. They can't pay for the travel for their salespeople. It's more than that. So what it turns into, if I spend my loan proceeds on inventory or vendor or my payables, let's say, I spend it on that, that's a loan. And on loans after June 5th, it's a 5-year term at 1%. That's a pretty good loan, even if with falling interest rates, that's about the lowest you can get, I think. So yes, the answer is if you spend on other items than those authorized in CARES for the PPP loan, it just becomes an SBA loan. It's a non-recourse loan. So this business that's having lots of trouble, they might also want to know that it's a non-recourse loan.
Are the caps on the amount of loan forgiveness available for owner employees and self-employed individuals on payroll compensation?
So those caps were described for us. So the answer is there are caps on what you can pay the self-employed or the owner employee. For borrowers that received a PPP loan before June 5th and who elect to use the 8-week covered period, the amount of loan forgiveness requested for the owner employee or the self-employed individual is capped at 8 weeks worth of 2019 compensation. So it's the S corporation owner, it would be 8 weeks worth of their 2019 W-2. For the self-employed, it's 8 weeks worth, and that's 850 seconds of the 2019 net Schedule C income. That's a maximum of $15,385. So count it as a $15,000 number. 550 seconds of a maximum of 100,000 gives you 15,385. For all other borrowers, those are the borrowers who are using all other borrowers being those who don't use, and you can tell I'm getting this out of an FAQ also, that for borrowers who are using the 24-week, the amount of loan forgiveness requested for the owner-employee and for the self-employed individual is 2.5 months worth of their 2019 compensation. You know, I wrote an answer to a question and said, oh, it's 2450 seconds of the 2019 compensation. I apologize for that. This is the clarification that it is not 2450 seconds. It maxes out at 2.5 months worth. But remember, when you applied, you took the compensation, the monthly wage, times 2.5. So your loan is 2.5 times compensation, and that's the most you can get forgiveness for. And by the way, that is a maximum of $20,833 because it's 2.5 divided by 12, 2.5 divided by 12 times a maximum of $100,000. That's always built into this. So we have a $15,000-ish number for 8 weeks and a $20,000-ish number for the 24-week covered period.